Hello, this training is going to cover radio and accessory audio quality best practices. In particular, this training will detail how to best use the XE RSM accessory with the APX radio. The topics that we will be covering today include what are the issues that can be seen, some of the radio and microphone best practices, again pertaining to the XE RSM. Within this, we'll be covering lapel microphone angle and hand position, mouth distance to microphones, how to speak in a loud, clear voice, and then we'll sample some actual audio test recordings and video that were made with and without following best practices. So first, what are some of the issues? When there is a high noise environment and you're trying to transmit in this high noise environment, there's a reduction of transmitted speech intelligibility. Also, when receiving in a noisy environment, there is a similar reduction of radio intelligibility. Another issue that happens is that the received audio may sound muffled and may be unintelligible. And this doesn't necessarily happen when transmitting in a high noise environment. So a quick overview of radio best practices. In high background noise and often extreme situations, the use of best practices along with optimized radio settings can help to directly improve radio communications. Basically, what this all comes down to is developing and maintaining good habits for radio communications. What we're talking about is creating muscle memory on how to hold, use, and operate the radio and radio accessories. Motorola Solutions has produced a short 5-minute video that covers radio best practices relating to the XE RSM. This video can be found from the YouTube link here, as well as there's a document that can be downloaded from the Motorola Solutions site that discusses the XE RSM best practices. These two tools, the document and the video, are highly recommended for delivering proper training to users of the XE RSM and the APX radio. Now let's talk about the lapel mic angle and hand position when using the XE RSM. When wearing and using the XE RSM, you want to make sure that the LED on the front face of the XE RSM, or rather the M within the label of XE RSM, is pointing at your mouth. So looking at the pictures below, as you can see, the microphone is angled directly towards the mouth, either on the left shoulder or on the right shoulder. What you do not want to do is hold the XE RSM either upside down on the chest, such that the microphones are pointed away from the mouth. When using the XE RSM with an SCBA voice emitter, again, you want to have the LED on the front face of the XE RSM or the M within the label of XE RSM pointed towards the voice emitter. As you can see in the picture here, with the RSM on the left shoulder of the firefighter, you'd want to make sure that the LED is pointed towards the voice emitter of the SCBA mask. What you do not want to do is have the XE RSM upside down with the LED or the M of the XE RSM pointed away from the voice emitter. When holding the XE RSM with the right hand, you want to make sure that you're not covering the front face of the XE RSM, because what this will do will cover the two front mic ports of the XE RSM, essentially creating muffled and unintelligible audio. Best practices would be to hold the XE RSM head with the thumb on the side and using the index finger to PTT the XE RSM. What this does is that it will keep the front face of the XE RSM always open and uncovered. Another option is to hold or grasp the bottom of the XE RSM head using the thumb to PTT the XE RSM and the index finger to hold the opposite side of the RSM. Again, this will keep the front face of the XE RSM uncovered. Looking at the left-hand usage. What you do not want to do is cup and cover the front of the XERSM face. Again, what this will do will cover up the two microphone ports and create muffled and unintelligible audio. As best practices, you can use the thumb and the index finger to support the XERSM and grasping the bottom of the XERSM head. What this will do will again keep the front of the XERSM open. PTT the radio and use the thumb to support the opposite side of the radio. Again, grasping the bottom side of the XERSM head, keeping the front face of the XERSM open. From a practical perspective, if you're holding the XERSM on a leather Boston strap, you want to make sure that the XERSM front face is pointed towards the head, and also while making sure the front of the XERSM face is open. The picture on the left shows the firefighter operating the XERSM in a manner that will create low audio because the front of the XERSM head is facing forward. The picture on the right, the firefighter is following best practices in that the XERSM is pointed towards the mouth, as well as the front face of the XERSM head is open. Wearing a turnout coat while using the XERSM with the XERSM threaded through the top collar of the coat. You can see on the left, the firefighter is not following best practices in that the RSM is on the chest and he's not turned towards the XERSM when speaking. For best practices, it is recommended to keep the XERSM preferably on the lapel loop on the left shoulder of the turnout coat. This allows the firefighter to properly grasp the XERSM while not covering the front face of the head, and then turning his head or the XERSM towards his mouth. When talking on air with the XERSM threaded through the top collar of the turnout coat, again, it is not preferable to hold the XERSM on the chest. Best practices would be to hold the XERSM to the side of the voice emitter of the mask, making sure that the LED side of the XERSM head is pointed towards the voice emitter of the SCBA mask. The next topic about best practices is mouth distance to the microphone. The keys for intelligibility improvement include multiple options for position and angle of the radio microphone. The first is either holding the radio microphone 1 to 2 inches directly from the mouth when possible, or as close to the SCBA voice emitter when possible. The other option is turning the face of the lapel microphone towards the mouth, or turning your head towards the face of the lapel microphone. In order to help facilitate radio best practices and how to hold the microphone regarding mouth distance to the microphone or microphone distance to the voice emitter, it is recommended to use a retractable microphone attachment. This makes it much easier to place the microphone to the proper distance, either in front of the mouth or onto the SCBA voice emitter. This particular type of retractable microphone attachment is called a gear keeper. It has proven to be very durable and allows for easy use of radio best practices when using a microphone. The last topic of this best practices is speaking in a loud, clear voice. So the keys for improving intelligibility would be to control the volume level and clarity of the voice. You're going to want to speak in a loud, elevated, but not necessarily shouting, clear voice, because this will help produce the best transmit audio quality and intelligibility. Essentially, what you want to do is project your voice into and across the microphone face of the XERSM. So now we'll sample actual test audio recordings and video that were made by customers using their own radio equipment with and without following radio best practices. The first audio file you're going to hear is when the firefighter is not following best practices. The second audio file you're going to hear is when the firefighter is following best practices, holding the XERSM as close to the voice emitter of the SCBA mask as possible.
PTT best practices. Command, platform 129 crew. Can you repeat your last message? Engine 421, Chief 40. Base is set up at Maple and Jane Street. Command, Rescue 411 Captain. Primary search is complete.
So as you can hear, the audio is much louder and much more intelligible when the XERSM is held closer to the SCBA mask voice emitter. Next, we're going to look at a high noise example with a firefighter talking next to a gas-powered fan producing about 103 dBs of background noise. You're going to see two videos. The first video is the firefighter not following best practices, holding the microphone towards his chest away from his mouth. The second video will be the firefighter following radio best practices, holding the microphone closer to his mouth and projecting his voice across the front face of the XERSM. Each video has two parts to it. The first part will be the acoustical environment with the video and the audio that was recorded. The second part of the video will be the actual radio recording, so it will represent what would have been heard at a dispatch or at an incident command. So let's watch the first video, which will be not following best practices. So as you can see and hear, it was a very loud environment. When the firefighter was not following best practices in this loud environment, the resulting radio audio was muffled, unintelligible, and could be described as sounding underwater. So what happens when the firefighter follows radio best practices?
Command, platform 129 crew. Can you repeat your last message? Engine 421, Chief 40. Base is set up at Maple and Jane Street. Command, Rescue 411 Captain. Primary search is complete.
As you can hear and see from the video, the firefighter was holding the microphone close to his mouth, turning the microphone face such that his voice was projecting across the front face of the XERSM. The resulting audio quality was very clear as well as very intelligible. So to summarize some of the radio best practices, we know that radio communications can be very difficult in high noise backgrounds and in stressful situations. While you can optimize the radio settings and improve the radio software to help improve the audio quality in these situations, but best practices will have a dramatic increase in the audio quality and intelligibility of your radio communications. It's the easiest solution to implement with the most positive impact on radio communications.